Wheel up and come again. We've got no sound. It's a good thing you couldn't hear what I was saying because I was completely talking out my ass. Anyways, yes, we've got sound now, which is beautiful. I am Johnny Massacre, and this is the Massacre Moment Live, where you can just ask me anything you like. Preferably about Japan. Usually I say to people, let's try to see how long we can go without talking about politics. That said, I do have my Donald Trump socks right next to me, so the show is already quite political, but let's see how long we can go before we get political and I start ranting about politics. I'm going to go out tonight. I'm going to a sleazy bar. If you've been watching the Massacre Moment Live over the last month or so, you probably know about this sleazy bar. There's this really fat guy with bleached blonde hair who's been going there for 10 years, so I wonder if he's going to be there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Gonna hit the bar and then might go to a club later. It's more kind of research purposes because I work in the music industry and I just need to get a feel for what's going on in clubland. Yes, I know clubs are empty and no one is gonna be there, but I need to kind of see what clubs are doing in regard to DJ sets and live performances next year. So gonna do some research and go to a club tonight. I might not drink any alcohol. My mate's gonna come over later. He's from Osaka. His name's Wataru, and he's pretty fucking funny. Osaka is about 3 hours via bullet train from Tokyo. It's pretty far away from Tokyo, and people in Osaka, the great city of Osaka, are very different from people in Tokyo, where I live. They're much more extroverted, and they're really fucking funny. So my friend Wataru, he's just very bizarre in a good way. So I'm looking forward to seeing him, and yeah, let's see what happens. I might do a live stream later on when I'm in the bar. So this is your chance to ask me anything you want, and I love answering your questions. You provide all of the content. It doesn't come from me, it comes from you. So get your questions in now, and I'll do my best to answer them. So we had one really weird dude in the comments section. I just had to block him because he started writing this weird quasi-romantic sexual fiction. So that guy's gone. But there's a question from Edge G, like your name. Edge G says, do you know Serpensa or Leo Y86? Sorry, can't say I do, mate. Sounds like some kind of name for a forum dweller. They talk about the differences between Japanese and Chinese girls in one of their vlogs. What's your opine, Johnny Massacre? Oh shit, difference between Chinese and Japanese? Okay, I don't think I can tell you what the Japanese say because this show would probably get banned by the YouTube overlords. But let me just put it like this. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to tell you how it is, right? Japanese people hate Chinese people. They hate them so much. It is probably the most open display of racism I've ever seen in any country that I've been to. In England, when I was growing up and stuff, yeah, there's racism, but there wasn't, I didn't see, it's very rare you see some really nasty racism, you know, people who genuinely hate someone of another race, they genuinely hate them. And then you have the people who kind of just don't really like a certain race, but they're not that aggressive about it. And yeah, that's in England. But in Japan, if you ask someone, what do you think of Chinese people? They'll just tell you that they hate them. It's true. Don't shoot the messenger. It's just true. So as for the difference between Chinese girls and Japanese girls, I don't know how much I should tell you, but just to be honest, I fucking love Japan. I'm kind of obsessed with Japan, and I just love Japanese girls. They gotta be Japanese. Any other type is impure. No, they're not impure. I'm just joking. But I just love Japanese girls. Korean girls are pretty hot. Chinese girls, I'm not so attracted to them. Culturally, it's so different. You know, maybe you can't tell the difference between a Japanese person, a Korean person, and a Chinese person, but for me, it's pretty easy to tell. And the Chinese are just different. Culturally, they're different. The language is so different. I find the language really abrasive and loud. I'm half German, so I'm allowed to say that because half of me has an abrasive, loud language. Ja, was ist denn das? Das ist der Scheiße. Komm mal her, du Scheißdreck. See, German's very abrasive, right? It's not like British, which is a lot smoother and more honey-like. And so I find that the Chinese language is like the German equivalent. So it's really abrasive. And Chinese people are much more in your face. They kind of just will like barge around and kind of do their thing. Japanese people always tiptoeing around, like really careful. Are you okay? Don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And they're much more delicate. It's like the women, they're so delicate, and it's all about being cute. So that's their whole shtick, is they've got to be as cute as possible. They've got to be as perfect as possible. You know how perfect Japanese food is? Well, they're just perfectionists. So that comes across the beauty, makeup, and fashion. And so Japanese women take all that, the aforementioned, really seriously. And you add all that together, and yeah, they're pretty fucking hot. There's not so many Chinese in Japan, but they're not like the Japanese. They don't wear the same clothes. They're so different culturally. Their attitude is completely different. So it's incomparable. I used to date a Taiwanese girl. She's actually one of the coolest girls I ever met. But she speaks Mandarin, which is what Chinese people speak. But Taiwanese and Chinese completely fucking different. So yeah, Japanese and Chinese girls are very different, to answer your question. Does that answer your question? All right, next question. Croak Bullfrog says, Johnny, did you see the video in GA, busted dead to rights? So I heard about this. I heard about there's apparently some video of some Democrats closing the ballot counting and then pulling out some suitcase full of ballots from under a table. I saw a tweet and there was 4 pictures and it was really out of context and I couldn't really see anything from it. Is this actually legit? Is this actually legit? Can someone answer in the comments? Is this hard evidence that there is voter fraud in GA? Because I really want to know. Someone suggested I should do a reaction video, and I would quite like to do that, so I might do that a little bit later on this weekend. Right, what else is going on? Hannah Park made it. Hannah, I love you. If you see Hannah in the comments, she's got a spanner next to her name because she's a moderator, and Hannah is fucking awesome. Hannah, I love you. She's living in California, so she's behind enemy lines. She's an illustrator and animator. She also does CGI or 3D illustrations, and she's extremely talented. So, Hannah, if you link your channel, you can put it in the comment box, and people should go check out Hannah's channel. She's young. She's 22 years old, and she's got a great career ahead of her. So Hannah Park, moderator, check her out in the comments, spanner next to her name. Hannah, I fucking love you. You're a legend. And she's animating my next music video. Cannot wait for that. Right, and then everyone's telling me there's no audio while I'm chatting away to myself. Right. Mark Simpson says, our dark marks have just been activated, and yet we can't hear Lord Massacre. Lord Massacre, I quite like that name. If you want to call me Lord, I will not object. Okay, so let's see. Oh man, there's already so many people talking. It's so hard to go through it, right? Uncompetitive says, I thought the Chinese Communist Party had got to you. Fuck the Chinese Communist Party. Hannah says, so to all of Johnny's new subscribers, isn't he brilliant? See, Hannah's so sweet. For some reason, she's very fond of me, and I'm very fond of her as well. So Hannah, yeah, just to say it one more time, can't say it enough. I love you, Hannah. Hero EXE says, are all the clubs opens? Not really, but tonight I'm going to find out. My mate, DJ Aki, who's the biggest drum and bass DJ in Japan, he did a live set last weekend in an empty club. So they opened the club, they held all the light show, all the bass, all the music, everything switched on basically, and just streamed it live and no one was there. So that tells you all you need to know about clubbing. I was thinking about this today. This whole thing about how the C word is going to fuck you up in a club is such bullshit. I have been to more clubs than you've had hot fucking dinners, mate. I've never once caught the flu, ever, when I've gone to a club, ever. Because people who go to clubs, they generally don't go when they're sick. But Johnny Massacre, people who have coronavirus don't show any symptoms, they're asymptomatic. Bullshit. I've never, ever, ever once caught the flu from going to a club. And since these viruses are pretty fucking identical, I just cannot imagine how clubs are going to be these breeding grounds for coronavirus. So I think the whole thing is stupid. We're going a bit political, but let's keep going. Hero says, yeah, live stream at the bar. I might do that. I might do that, but yeah. So Charles Tolls Yankee says, where do you live? I live in Japan, Tokyo. Hannah's answering my questions. Michael Whittle says, I like Japan. Is there any fish and chippies over there? Yeah, there is. Fish and chips is kind of a thing. So Japanese people, if you're from Britain and they communicate with you, they will probably slide the English cuisine, fish and chips, into the topic somewhere. Do you like fish and chips? Yes, I like fish and chips. I'm from England and that's all I fucking eat every day. Just the same as Yankees, all they eat is hot dogs and hamburgers, and Germans eat schnitzel. But they do have fish and chips out here. It's completely different. See, English fish and chips kind of dirty, right? It's kind of greasy and slimy, and it's in a fucking newspaper, mate. Loads of chips everywhere, bit of ketchup, bit of vinegar, right? It's all a bit dirty. Japanese don't do dirty. Their fish and chips is all prim and proper, mate. And the batter's much crispier. So Japanese people don't really understand how to do fish and chips properly. And despite this country being famed for their aquatic cuisine, for want of a better term, their fish and chips really is not... It doesn't have the spirit of England in it, mate. Croak Bullfrog says, do Japanese ladies speak English? Some of them do. Some of them do. And the ones that do are generally looking for a Westerner to hook up with. The Japanese chicks that don't speak English, they're a different breed altogether. So the hot chicks basically don't speak English because, as is the way with Asian culture, men just do everything for women out here. It's old school shit where the man just pays for everything and the woman just doesn't do anything. And so the Japanese chicks who are hot have no motivation to learn English whatsoever. They don't need any academic skills at all because men are just constantly throwing their money at them. So those kind of chicks don't speak English, and often they're the hottest ones. See, there's this misconception that foreigners in Japan are banging loads of Japanese chicks. Yes, if you're a foreigner and you come here, you can bang loads of Japanese chicks, but they're probably not going to be that hot. Honestly, I ask people, in all my years here, how many times have I seen a Westerner with a fucking stunning Japanese chick? I'm talking thoroughbred, hot as fuck, kawaii Japanese bitch. It's very, very, very rare because the really hot ones don't speak English and they'll generally go for people who speak Japanese. So, yeah, they do speak English, some of them, but generally the English is quite shit. But even if you do speak Japanese, and I speak a little bit, if you meet Japanese who don't speak English, they don't have any interaction with foreigners and they're often quite afraid of foreigners. So they can be quite a tough nut to crack. But if you're a charming dapper, then you do actually have a chance. Right. Other things people are saying in the comments. Voice of Judgment says, how is it living in a nuclear wasteland? Pretty fucking good. They built a really decent city on top of it. Milord says, Poland love Trump. Biden love communism global. Can't argue with that. The guy I want a tattoo from, who I mentioned on my show yesterday, who goes by the name of Davy Blows, he's Polish, so I do wonder if he's a Trump fan, because if he is, we'll have a rather good natter when he does my tattoo. Hannah Park says, what about Korean? See, Hannah, she's basically saying, what's the difference between Korean birds and Japanese birds? Hannah Park is actually Korean, but she's basically American because you were born in America, right? Korean chicks are kind of, they look more like Japanese than Chinese chicks do. They're kind of slimmer and taller, and they're much more extroverted than Japanese. So Japanese are all kind of shy and like this. Koreans don't give a fuck. They're much more extroverted. So it's good going on a night out with some Koreans. They're a good laugh. I think I dated a Korean bird a little bit. She was all right, I guess. I don't really have anything bad to say about the Koreans. Craig Bullfrog says, do you speak Japanese? 俺は日本語を少し話せます。でも、10年前、日本に引っ越した。でも、まだ日本語めっちゃ悪いですね。So that's pretty much the extent of my Japanese skills. I do have a test on Sunday, so I'm trying to learn, but I've been pretty lazy in all the time that I've been out here. Voice of Judgment says, same here, I'm part German. I'm sorry to hear that, mate. That means you're a fucking pervert. Because German people are so perverted. Haven't you ever seen German porn? Don't lie, you've come across it. German people are so dirty. And it was really funny. One of the last times I was in a club, I was absolutely wankered. And I met this German guy, and bringing up World War II, probably not the best topic with a German, but I love talking about weird shit like that. So I have this theory why Germans are so perverted. And I was talking about this with my best mate who's British, and we came to the conclusion that the reason why Germans are so perverted and Germanic porn is so twisted is because of repressed guilt over World War II, right? Because during the Nazi salute in Germany, well, I think it's pretty much banned everywhere, but there's certain things which are banned in German culture, like discussing certain World War II topics or Nazi-related things. And they basically they committed the worst atrocity ever, basically, in World War II with the gas chambers and stuff like that. So Germans, what I'm trying to say is Germans have a lot of guilt over World War II. And there's nothing they can really say or do that will ever atone for it to the modern kind of liberal. It's funny because Germans never get shit for that. You hear about like white supremacy and stuff, and white people and white males in general right now are a target, but no one talks about the Germans. They did loads of shit. They fucked up Jewish people, but then Jewish people seem to be doing all right, so they don't really complain about it. Anyways, I digress. Germans have guilt about World War II, and they repress that guilt, and that turns into sexual neuroses. It means they're really fucking crazy in the sack. So that's what me and my mate reckon. So I met a pure German the other day, and I was telling him, he was cracking up, man. He was loving it. He agreed with me. So Germans are perverted because of repressed World War II guilt, in my opinion. What do you think? Bob Kelly says, my mother-in-law in Chengdu was bombed by the Japanese every night in her teens. The Chinese hate the Japanese right back up to today. Yeah, like the Chinese and Japanese fucking hate each other. And it's just exacerbated because culturally it's so different. Chinese people don't queue. They're just shouting and they bust into the queue. Japanese people love queuing. They'll queue for hours and you won't hear a peep from them. So culturally they're so different. Historically, they've been at each other. Japan committed some horrific atrocities in Nanking. Like many other countries have done, although there's not so many who've committed atrocities to the degree that Japan did. I'd say that, you know, Japan and Germany are right up there with war atrocities. So, yeah, Chinese and Japanese absolutely hate each other. Can't we just get along? The war's over, people. The war's fucking over. Generations apart. Can we just not get along? It's easy to blame people for your problems. Just lost about 100 Chinese subscribers, I think. So, right, let's see what's going on in the comments. What's up with Fukushima disaster? 5309Z says, honestly, no one even talks about it anymore. No one talks about the Fukushima disaster. I looked at a scientific paper recently to try to find out about the radioactive leaking. And after the event, there was extremely high levels of radioactivity in rivers and lakes around Fukushima. And some of the radioactivity even managed to travel pretty close to Tokyo. And a lot of fish were carrying much higher levels of toxicity than normal. But other than that, you don't even hear about it. So people eat their fish. They don't even check where it comes from. So who fucking knows? Who knows? But no one talks about Fukushima anymore in Japan. That was some crazy shit, right? 9 years ago now. 3/11. That was 11th of March. So, no, it was March 2011, and it was around March 15th, I think. Uncompetitive says, a blonde woman told everyone to go home for the night. Then when the Republican observers had left, 4 counters remained from 10:40 until 1 a.m. and continued counting. Yeah, so people have talked about this a lot, right? So everyone goes home, and then all the swing states that Biden needs to win, suddenly in the morning, they've managed to count hundreds of thousands of ballots for him. No fraud at all. Okay, so what else we got in the comments? Hannah says, Phoenix and I... Is Phoenix your housemate with the dyed green armpit hair? Phoenix and I watched the German silent film from 1930. It was very clear this was Tim Burton's biggest inspiration. Can you link us the name? That sounds quite interesting, Hannah. Voice of Judgment says, yes, the Krauts are dirty shitheads. And me being half Kraut, I would probably agree with you. You cunt. That's the British side of me talking. Uncompetitive says, posted the CCTV video evidence of bringing suitcases of ballots from under tables whilst observers have been sent home for the night. Okay. And then Uncompetitive says, Sky News Australia are covering it and it seems legit. Croak Bullfrog says, Japanese atrocities, Bataan Death March, is that still in the Japanese memories? Japanese people never, ever talk about the war. People have serious apathy towards politics and history in Japan. And people they never, ever talk about it. So it's one of the reasons I like Japan. When I was kind of a liberal back in the day, I didn't give a fuck about anything. So it was a typical deconstructionist attitude. Forget about the history, forget about the past. Nothing has any meaning anyways. I'm going to make a new world, a new future kind of thing. But I never cared about it. And in a way, it's difficult, but because I think you shouldn't forget about these atrocities because you don't want to repeat them. But at the same time, if people just fucking moved on from this shit, the world would be such a better place. People, they're just looking for an excuse to blame other people for their own problems, and a war is a pretty good one to do that. I never blame anyone or anything for any problems. If someone came along and stabbed me with a knife and crippled me, I'd blame myself for not defending myself properly. So I just think my philosophy is you need to move on from shit. And that's one of the reasons I like living out here, because people don't talk about war and shit. I mean, look, my country was fighting against Japan. I don't get any shit for it out here whatsoever, and vice versa. So it's one of the things I like about it. Japanese people don't give a shit about politics either. So it makes life a lot simpler, you know? But in the West, people are so obsessed with politics, right? So Croak Bullfrog says, Japanese don't mix race. Well, they do. I mean, they do. But I think, you know, the Japanese people who don't speak a lot of English and they're kind of afraid of foreigners, yeah, they're definitely not going to hook up with a foreigner and make a family. Hannah says, my Chinese roommate grew up in Hawaii and has a lot of Japanese friends. She speaks Japanese and Chinese. Well, that's the difference, right? The Chinese people I've met who've grown up somewhere else, they basically adopt the spirit and ideology of that country. So it's like me, right? I'm half German, but I was born in London. So I'm basically a British person. And the Chinese people who've been born or grown up somewhere else, they just adopt that culture. And because Western culture is so much better than modern Chinese culture, I think Chinese people do well for that. I mean, right? In China, you can get thrown into jail for criticizing Mao, right? But in the West, you can say Donald Trump's an orange Hitler and everyone's going to give you a clap for you, right? So even though it's silly, people calling Donald Trump orange Hitler, the fact that they have a right to do that is amazing. And I would not want to take that away from anyone. So yeah, Chinese people who've grown up outside of communism are going to adopt the free ideals of the West. So that's why your mate has a lot of Japanese friends, because she has the Western mentality, and it's much more forgiving, I think, in some ways. 5309 says, listen to Witch Cross Night Flight to Tokyo. Awesome metal. All right, mate, I'll check that out later. Jordan Durham says, are there any other areas in Japan you would want to live in? It's all about Tokyo. Tokyo is, well, look, you look at New York, you look at California, and you compare those states to other states in America, and they're like another fucking world. They're almost like little countries, little microcosms of a country with different practices, different cultures, and different rules and shit. So it really is all about Tokyo. It's a great place to live. The thing about it is it's so fucking busy, especially if you're in the city. It's all about like make as much money as possible, always fucking moving around. You never get a second to take a break, which I actually really like. But when I rarely get out of the concrete jungle into rural areas that are greener, wow, it feels like shit. I've been in the Matrix for so long. Unplug that shit. Wow, trees, nice fresh air, nice bit of nature. Have that for a day or two. Go back to Tokyo, and then you have a bit of perspective and you realize, fuck, man, I've been in this crazy. It's not a rat race because I'll never be part of a fucking rat race, mate. But you're part of that system, and when you get out of it and come back, you realize, fuck. Once you're inside it, you're just almost ignorant to how busy and energetic and chaotic it is. You just get swept along with the current. And then when you go back to Tokyo after having, you know, taken a break in the countryside or whatever, which is also really nice, it only takes about 30 minutes to get plugged straight back into the Matrix, and off you go again. Okay, so more comments. Hannah says, love you too. It is all love on the Johnny Massacre show. This is the thing, right? Some of the most aggressive, intolerant people I've met in the last 2 or 3 years have been liberals. Some of the nicest, loveliest, warmest, sweetest, chill people I've met have been conservatives or people who are basically not leftists. And it's the thing that leaves a really sour taste in my mouth is leftists can be so aggro and so intolerant of any diversity of thought. And at the same time, when they shriek at people and go like this. They actually say that doing that is a good thing. So not only are they being cunts, but then when you say, hang on a minute, you're being a bit cunty, then they're going to say, no, what I'm doing is right. Being cunty and intolerant is right because you're a bad person. There's no world that can function with people who think like that. So it's all love on the Johnny Massacre show, really. Let's see what else you're saying in the comments. So everyone's saying that this video allegedly where in GA there's a big suitcase full of ballots that they take out from under a table and start counting is legit. My question is, well, it sounds very sketchy, but was that just a legit suitcase of ballots? Surely not, right? Because who's going to bring ballots in a suitcase? That sounds so fucking sketchy. Charles Toll says, there is also the California Communist Party. I do not doubt it. I do not doubt it for a second. Craig Bullfrog says, English people have dark ages genes. Probably, yeah. That's why we're such dark motherfuckers and we love to conquer shit. And we've got teeth like a broken keyboard. Not me, though. Now, how is this for Orwellian? So Anthony Ziemiak, his comment has been censored, and I have to show it in order to reveal it. Do you know what his comment is that got censored? CCP is Satan. So calling the Chinese Communist Party Satan is getting censored on YouTube. No wonder the owners of YouTube are leftists and Marxists, because they fucking love China. I'm going to uncensor your comment, Anthony. Mark Simpson says, what is the root cause of the previously discussed animosity that the Japanese have towards the Chinese? Okay, so that's a good fucking question, right? Because the Japanese dominated the Chinese in wars across history. So it's because the culture is so different. Japanese people I speak to, they say that Chinese people are too loud, and they say they're too rude, and they say they're messy, they litter and stuff like that. And I've never been to China, but my friends who've been there said, yeah, the littering is insane compared to Japan, and people are just so much noisier. It's like oil and water, trying to combine it together. They're just going to separate. The cultures are so different. And if you mix into that, the communism and shit, it just doesn't work with the Japanese. Japanese people are very kind of classical liberal. They're kind of cool with anything, which is weird, right? Because they used to be so hardcore about everything. But whatever you want to do, just fucking do it, mate. They really don't give a shit. I love that about the Japanese. So yeah, it's just so different culturally. Mark Simpson says, how does Japanese society currently regard some of the actions of their country during World War II? Is there still a lot of denial? See, this is a sketchy topic. I'll ask my mate Wataru tonight. I'm going to fucking ask him because he's cool. He's not going to get triggered about something like that. But I've never asked the Japanese about the atrocities committed in World War II. There was a lot of human testing and live human vivisection and very, very, very fucked up human experimentation that some argue is the most egregious ever committed in world history. So that is a good question to ask a Japanese person. So I'm going to ask my mate tonight, and I'll get back to you on the next massacre moment. Charles Toll says Japanese food is also art. It certainly is. It certainly is. It's one of the fucking best things about living here. The food is so damn good. It's so fucking damn good. And since I love eating, it's a great place to be. Voice of Judgment says, I won't eat another piece of fish or seafood post Fukushima. I don't know if they're going to swim all the way over to you, mate. Where you living? Okay, so let's keep going through these comments. Right, let me refresh this. Let's see what you lot are saying. Right, okay, here we go. So, Anthony Ziemiak says, Germans built submarines for Israel. Okay, I can only say that's a good thing because I think we need to protect Israel. Because Ben Shapiro loves Israel, and I love Ben Shapiro. Jeff and Bridges Highs and Lows says, Johnny, do you watch the Salty Cracker YouTube channel? So a lot of people have been recommending me this recently, so I did go over there. And to be honest, the guy would talk shit on me for saying this, but I just found it a bit too much, and that's coming from me. But it's just a lot of screaming and shouting. Actually, sounds a lot like my channel. Now I know where people recommending me the Salty Cracker. But the Salty Cracker, he's just, the thing I noticed about him is that guy has balls of steel. He will not. He won't even, he'll give you raw, unfiltered train of thought about Antifa, about anything, about woke shit. And that I really respected him for. And I just thought it was really intense. And it was just a little bit too much for me. But I do respect the guy for speaking his mind. Salty Cracker, I can see why he's popular. And I love his cussing of Antifa, which is awesome. So yeah, I checked it out a little bit, but it's not really my cup of tea, to be honest. My cup of fucking tea, mate. So Hannah says this 1930s German documentary that she alleges probably influenced Burton is called Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. What is the plot? Ed Quebec says, did you ever hear that China bought Dominion, the voter company, on October 8, 2020? It was on Eric Metaxas radio show on Thursday. I mean, nothing would surprise me at this point, mate. I've already read about the Dominion voting machines being used in communist countries like Venezuela decades ago. So is it any fucking surprise? I mean, China hate Trump because of all the tariffs he put on them. And China funds some wings of the Black Lives Matter organization. And China's philosophy is the same as Black Lives Matter. And would it surprise me that China bought the Dominion voter company? Hell no, but I haven't heard that. Michael Whittle says, Japan seems shy with their past history. Yeah. I just think the new generation don't give a fuck. They don't care about it. They don't give a fuck. They've moved on. And look, right? Japan rebuilt itself after getting nuked into world superpower, one of the top 3 economies in the world. So, or top 4, with basically England, China, and America. They didn't whine about it. They weren't asking for reparations or handouts. They just said, right, fuck it. Someone flattened us. They took responsibility for it. They lost the fucking war. They sided with the Germans. They lost it. They stopped whining. They rebuilt it. And look at them today. So why do they need to bring up World War II? They've moved on from it. Which is awesome. Johnny Griffith says, Johnny, comma, yes, what is it? Voice of Judgment says, trust me, Johnny, Tokyo ground samples are high enough to be considered for evacuation here in America. It would take them 100 years to decommission Fukudaiichi. It's a planet killer. Nuclear is global. Well, I just hope I kind of turn into some mutant with superpowers like Spider-Man who was bitten by a radioactive spider. That would pretty much make up for all the fish I'm eating that's going to give me cancer in the next 10 years. Okay, so Voice of Judgment says, that being said, I loved, in capitals, Japan when I visited. Yeah, who doesn't love Japan? The only person who I think didn't like Japan was my dad. So I tried to get him out here for ages, and he came out here. My dad is such a traditional British man. And when he came out here, first thing he said was, I need to go to Dean and DeLuca to get my porridge. Dad, you're in fucking Tokyo, mate. This city has more Michelin star restaurants than any city in the fucking world, and even cheap food tastes fucking delicious, and your first thought is you want to get some fucking porridge? My dad, I tried to get him to eat sushi. I've never seen someone so terrified in their life. He didn't even eat he couldn't even eat the raw fish. He ate a shrimp. Even the shrimp was too it was too much for him. So Dad, if you're watching, I love you. How about round 2 this time? Really, really go wild and eat some salmon sushi or something. So my dad's pretty much the only person I know who I think didn't really like Japan so much. Anthony Zemiak says, isn't the ocean of Japan dead? I don't think so, mate. they caught a massive fucking great white shark recently up north in Hokkaido, and that's fucking freezing. So great white sharks, sorry mate, got your tooth, you cunt. If they're swimming around in the freezing part, there's got to be other aquatic bastards swimming around in the ocean. Croak Bullfrog says, enough ballots to turn GA red. See, I've heard about this. I've heard about this a lot. I watched Louder with Crowder, and they actually have a lot of info on there. They have a lawyer on there, and they have all the links to the evidence that they use for their claims. And he was talking about how even if they just do the basic stuff, and for example, if they just do a basic recount and they get rid of the things that have already been literally proved as fraudulent, they're going to flip GA. So that's quite interesting. Louder with Crowder, I'm not a fan of it. I don't find him funny. He's got balls, and I respect him for how brave he is. I mean, the guy's got a gun holster on his fucking show, so he's fucking loaded live on air, and he'll go and set up a booth and say something really triggering to liberals and say, change my mind. So I massively respect him. But Louder with Crowder, I mean, they just scream all the time. He's like, and does the, I can't take it, Louder with Crowder. But I guess I'm the British equivalent of that because I do scream a lot as well. Just with far less facts. Voice of Judgment says, yes, the Pacific is dead. Is it? Kathy Mello says, across the Pacific, signs of dead life. West Coast US tide pools dead. Shit, is this a thing? I haven't heard about this. I watched Jordan Peterson. He was saying the ocean is amazing at replenishing itself. He says it replenishes itself really, really quickly. Jordan Peterson said, do you remember that oil leak? I can't remember the one, but that massive oil leak that everyone was freaking out about. Apparently, they tested the ocean there to see what the wildlife was like. And apparently, there was more ocean life around that spot where there was the oil leak than before the oil leak. So I would like to see some data on this. With the ocean, it's quite hard to know, right? If you Google things like endangered species, no one really knows the exact number. It's very difficult to test this stuff. Voice of Judgment says, I'm total right-wing and far more tolerant than any liberal I know. And it wouldn't surprise me because, well, any political side that doesn't want free speech will just call anything they don't like hate speech, and any political side that is pro-censorship is going to be extremely aggressive with trying to shut down anyone that they disagree with. So people are saying 5 suitcases. So there was 5 suitcases of phony ballots allegedly in GA. Is this true? Danny says, GA Governor Brian Kemp has now agreed to do a signature audit after the CCTV footage surfaced. Now, if this is true, Danny, this is what we want to know. And this is what Donald Trump wanted. Donald Trump says, fuck recounting it under the same fraudulent pretenses. We have to take every single mail-in ballot. We have to check the signature against the person who filed that ballot. So basically, you have to take every single mail-in ballot and make sure it's legit. And if they do that, it's going to be so interesting to see the results. And if those results show that tens or even hundreds of thousands of votes were fraudulent, then you actually might see the whole election overturned, because that will warrant other states' votes being counted in the same way. So shit is getting interesting, like I said on yesterday's Johnny Massacre show. Tom Stibb says, hello, Tokyo. Pinging in from Vancouver, Canada. Trump 2020. Big up, big up. Yes. Trump 2020, indeed. All hope is not lost. I do have hope that Trump is going to do absolute madness, bruv. Turn things around. Nitro460 says, the post office doesn't use suitcases to deliver mail-in ballots. Yeah, obviously they don't. I don't even know why I entertain that idea, but I just try to be as intellectually honest as possible. Yeah, wheeling in a suitcase full of ballots seems rather dodgy. You're not fucking going on holiday, mate. Kathy Mello says, my internet getting hit right now. Yes, the Chinese Communist Party all over that ass. Jeff Cole says, nuke fuel does not go away. Yeah, that's true, actually. But it's going to get diluted, right? It's going to get diluted in the ocean. And how diluted is it going to get? And how much of a threat is that to the general populace? I'm going to ask my mate as well about Fukushima, because he's Japanese. I'm going to ask him what's going on. Okay, right. Comments are heating up, so let's see what's going on. Okay. Fuck, there's more comments than I thought. Okay, here we go. So 5309 says, does Japan have their own Second Amendment? So I don't really know a lot about the Japanese political system at all. I'm kind of with the Japanese people, as in I don't really give a fuck. But no, they don't have a Second Amendment. You cannot have a gun out here. My mate has a house in the countryside and he's always got bears rummaging around, digging up the vegetables and fucking shit up. So I said to him, why don't you shoot that motherfucker? And then I said, you know what? I really want to go hunting. I want to get my Joe Rogan on and I want to go and murder some animals in cold blood with some bullets. And he told me that you basically can't get a gun. And the only foreigners with guns you could count on one hand in Japan. It's so fucking hard to get a license. They got fetish for rules out here. And apparently, even if you do somehow manage to get a gun license, you have to be reviewed all the time, like every 6 months. And your neighbors have to say you're legit. How about that? So Japan has some very kind of commie rules. Having neighbors kind of spying on you and ratting you out. Your neighbors have to say you're okay in order for you to get a gun. So basically, no, Japan does not have a Second Amendment. And if there were a Second Amendment, I would be out right now in the wilderness shooting bears in the face, making their face explode so it looks like a big pancake. Voice of Judgment says Donald Trump broke the libs. That might be the truest statement ever uttered on the Johnny Massacre show. Think about it for a second. Anthony Zemiak says, for the Marxist, if God doesn't exist, then Satan doesn't exist, right? Itamar Raphael, where are you from? Says they're not taught at school about it. Croak Bullfrog says Iranians are the real 666. The peace pact are further isolating the regime. They are stockpiling uranium more than ever. I think we should try to, like, being politically correct now a little bit, I think we should try to separate Iranians from the Iranian authorities, because the Iranian people, they're at the mercy of those motherfuckers. And do you know what? A lot of Iranians I met, they despise that regime, especially women who are kind of forced to wear hijabs and stuff. So yeah, the Iranians authorities, they're fucking cunts, man. They're really antagonistic fuckers. And Trump did a great job pulling out of that fucking peace deal, giving them a shitload of your tax-paying money, and they'll just use it to fund terror and just further their nefarious ambitions. So yeah, Iran is going to be a big topic over the next 2 or 3 years. If the liberals, if the Dems fucking do another peace deal and start shifting them pallets of cash, oh my God. And if this election is proved as fraudulent, or if people don't accept it and Biden gets in and then they start shaking hands with the Iranians again, man, you're going to see some shit in America. So what else have we got going on here? C. Grieve says, all in caps, they take ballot boxes from under a table that has a cloth over it. It sounds like something from WWE, right? Do you remember they'd have these little announcer tables and the commentators, and they'd have like a chair under it, or even like a wrestler would be under it, like the Undertaker would come out from under the commentating table. It sounds so ridiculous, this voter fraud evidence about having suitcases under a table. You could almost put it in WWE fan fiction. Danny recommends The Anger of the Left by Thomas Sowell. Danny says that people on the political left have a certain set of opinions, just as people do in other parts of the ideological spectrum, is not surprising. What is surprising, however, Danny says, is how often the opinions of those on the left are accompanied by hostility and even hatred. But they're fighting white supremacy and Nazis and Orange Hitler. So it's okay if they're violent and aggressive, right? Craig Bullfrog says, hell yeah, Danny, cracking his Trump, slowly releasing the truth to keep the liberals from looting. Tom Stibbs, yeah, it's always too much initially, talking about Salty Cracker, I think. I subscribed, unsubscribed, and then subscribed. Now I love the guy. Itamar Raphael says, Israel just got delivery of an advanced warship from Germany. Someone else mentioned that. I'm an effing unicorn says nothing can stop liberals from looting, but they're looting because of the oppressive culture in the freest country in the world, where any stupid cunt can make money, and honey off the gig market, such as Uber and Airbnb. But they're living in oppression, right? So they should start looting. Okay. So Kathy Mello talking about Salty Cracker, I think, reminds me of... You remind me of him. Okay, so maybe I've got a little bit of the Salty Cracker spirit. So Jeff Cole, your comment has been censored. Let me show it. He says, good work, mate. Jeff in NYC surrounded by psycho libtards. How do you get on with things, Jeff? How do you go about your day? Do you wear a MAGA hat in New York City? And if you do, what kind of pushback is there? Tom Stibb says, Johnny, watch Salty's restreams, about 2 hours. Salty grows on you, man. I thought your taste in music sucked, but now, well, I'm coming around. well, I'm glad to hear it. What music did I play that you didn't like? And then how did I change your mind? Tell me the truth. Voice of Judgment says, I live in Indiana in the States. All of the Northern Hemisphere is irradiated permanently, sadly, but enough bashing the Japanese for covering up Fukushima. Anyway, love you and your laid-back attitude. Yeah, man, I don't know. Like, I'm a little bit indifferent to the whole nuclear thing. I know people that let it affect them a lot and they start getting anxious about it. But really, other than not eating fish and shit, what am I going to do living in Tokyo? I don't fucking know. So I just get on with shit. When I was younger, I was a little baby. I was literally just born. There was Chernobyl. And my parents said they stopped buying milk because they were afraid of nuclear rain raining on the grass in England and the cows eating it and then the milk from the cows poisoning me. So that my dad stocked up on shitloads of powdered milk. How's that for a story? And I turned out all right. So Uncompetitive has seen the movie that Hannah... the moderator Hannah Park, who I love, who illustrates some of my music videos, he's seen the movie that she mentioned that she said influenced Tim Burton from the 30s, the German movie called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Uncompetitive says it is very stylized with angular painted sets. It's about a sleepwalker who is hypnotized to commit murders. Okay, I'm going to watch this shit. And I think you lot should too. And maybe I'll review it around Christmas. I'm an effing unicorn says... Dominion was dissolved in a year ago for non-payment of taxes, but still continue to operate in the state even this year. Okay, so yeah, certain states, they refused to use Dominion because it's sketchy, but some did. So he's talking about Missouri. I heard in Texas as well, they refused to use Dominion. Yeah, Dominion, I mean, come on now. It does look a bit sketchy, doesn't it? Mark Simpson says, what's with the new beard? The only reason I have this beard is because I can't be fucked to cut it. I'm too busy, you know. I do a lot of DJ practice for when the clubs are going to reopen, a lot of scratch practice, music theory, and research for this show. It just doesn't leave me time to cut my beard. Going to bed these days at like 7 a.m., sometimes sleeping 2 or 3 hours, waking up, get a power nap. So there's no time to cut it. But next week, I'm going to get a haircut and I'm going to cut the beard as well. I'm going to freak you guys out. You guys, as the YouTubers say, I'm going to freak you guys out. I'm going to dye my hair like pink or something. Because you know what? Back in the days, mate, dyeing your hair pink or green, that was a proper punk statement. But now, it's like the California commies raging about capitalism on their iPhones, drinking their pumpkin spice lattes. And they have coloured hair. So people associate coloured hair with them. But I'm going to freak you out and dye my hair pink for a future Johnny Massacre show. Because why not? I'd probably go for green. Right. Steve Tame says, in an ordered society, is the edge in new music. Operation Nobo says, I'm starting to think the Germany raid actually happened. Yeah, and so am I. I didn't stop people in the comments from saying, what the fuck are you talking about conspiracy theory? I'm just reporting what Sidney Powell said in a Trump press conference. You make your own mind up. I love that. So that's a classic neoliberal thing, right? Where you say something that they don't agree with politically, and they get angry that you've even said it. They want to somehow reverse time so the words like suck back into your mouth and you never said it. They feel offended that you said that, and you mustn't be allowed to say that ever again, because then other people might hear it. And liberals don't trust other people to logically break down any info. They think other people are stupid, and if they hear something bad, they're going to get infected. It's going to fuck up the world. Liberals need to learn to respect other people's intelligence, because people are not as stupid as you think. Getting political. Getting political. Should I put on the Trump socks? It's funny because my friend says, it's funny because the first time I wore, a couple of times I wore these, I got laid. So I said to my friend, you know what? These are the magic socks. I'm only putting these on when I'm going out hunting. And I am single, so I'm going to put this shit on. Ugh. I'm going to put on the Trump socks. Because, yeah. Any single men watching, trust me, get yourself a pair of Donald Trump socks. It's like fucking magic. Get some of that Trump dragon energy. Stars and stripes on my foot. Auf meinen Fuß, as they say in German. Boom. How about it? Steve Tame says, I grew up listening to early edgy punk in the UK. Yeah, you got some good musical education there, yeah. Punk, that is a preserve of the British. You can thank us for that. We made some fucking shit hot music in the latter half of the 20th century, did we not? Hannah, you're still awake. You're doing very well, my friend. I don't have time for rubbish Tokyo, mate. It's tea time and I'm on holiday. Yeah, that's probably what my dad was thinking. Michael Whittle says Biden falls down with foot in mouth disease. Is that a pun on foot and mouth disease? That disease that infected pigs? I'm an effing unicorn says the whole election needs to be trashed. Just let the electorate handle it. The thing is, if they do that, it's going to be fucking civil war. But I mean, if they find evidence of fraud, a few more Krakens, then who knows what's going to happen. Danny says, aren't the Japanese quite racist or have pretty strict segregation between foreigners and locals? How's your Japanese? Yeah, Japanese have segregation as shit. So 6 years ago, there's a club called Harlem in Shibuya, and there's a sign, and it says, foreigners cannot come in unless they're accompanied with Japanese. So you're basically tainted, but you're kind of validated if a Japanese person holds your hand. And the thing is, I don't give a fuck about it because that is free speech. You know, if you don't want to let someone into your place because they're white, you can say it. I don't give a shit. That's a necessary byproduct of free speech. But putting it in your club, that's a bit sketchy for a business. Anyways, they used to have that, but they took the sign away. Because look, foreigners, right? If you let foreigners into your country, they're probably going to fuck it up. You know, I used to get into fight. I don't get into fights anymore. But when I was younger, I used to get into fights and shit in Tokyo. And it's because I'm a Westerner. Japanese people don't do that. Westerners like, what? You fucking touched my bird again, mate. I'll fucking shank you. That's just the Western mentality. So if you bring a load of people like that into your country, you're going to bring that mentality as well. So I can see why Japanese, they don't want to have some foreigners in clubs, because some foreigners will just, they will do crazy shit. But saying that, I've seen plenty of Japanese do stupid shit in clubs. I've seen plenty of Japanese people sexually molest women and kind of sexually assault them, grabbing them, touching when they get drunk and stuff. So a lot of my Japanese friends who are female always talk about that. So you can't just say it's all the foreigners, right? But it's a very dicey subject. Like, this race of people do this, and then, you know. So the rule is just have one rule for everybody, and then it's very simple. But in America, you don't want that. You want special rules for black people, white people, and Asian people. That's not going to make people resentful at all. That's going to make a free and balanced society. That's going to make utopia come through. Right. Louder with Crowder, Operation Nobis says, has too many sidekicks in his studio. It gets annoying. It's just Louder with Crowder's like, and then he goes over here and he says, hey! He's just screaming all the time like that with these kind of jokes and stuff. Some of the things he says are quite funny. And again, I really respect the guy for what he does, but I also find it a little bit radical. It's almost like they have a predetermined conclusion and they desperately try to find evidence to prove it. But they do actually find a lot of useful evidence as well. So it's a little bit too radical. I know he's friends with Ben Shapiro, but Ben Shapiro is the most intellectually honest conservative alive today, you'd have to say. Itamar Raphael says, same. I can't watch Louder with Crowder too often. Screeching voice. Yeah, but I think a lot of people like that. And I think boomers like it as well. And they like conspiracy theories and stuff. And they will entertain that a little bit. So, but look, I don't want to knock it because they've got a good format. And, you know, they do come out with some good info sometimes. Michael Chatick says, Japan moved on from it. I guess he's referring World War II. He says, Japan has been controlled by US. Only recently did US surrender some control. Okinawa chain of islands. Okinawa was taken under control by MacArthur, end of World War II. So yeah, but my investor, he says that Japan is still controlled by America and they always will be. And why wouldn't they be? Because it's basically a strategic vantage point right in between China, and they need it here. They need the bases here. So Japan will always be under the thumb of America. You can bet your ass on that. Okay. So I'm going to have to leave in about 4 minutes. So try to get in any questions now. I'll do my best. Oh, man, there's so much shit going on here right now. We got 100 viewers. Fuck, I haven't been paying attention. 100. We were a ton up, mate. If you're just joining us, I am Johnny Massacre, and this is the Massacre Moment Live, where I connect with you live just to try to make a vibe and just chill. So, Operation Nova says, guns in Japan? Hell no. Man, there's so many comments now. It's just going to be... It's going to be impossible to read them all. But I'll try to read the people who haven't made a comment yet. Alexander Romero says, Crowder was one of the first conservative shows I subscribed to. I have to agree that I never find Crowder funny, but I appreciate his balls as well. So yeah, I'm with you, Romero. Romero shares the name of a pioneering director who created the zombie genre of movies. Jay American says, after Fukushima, some seals and polar bears off the coast of Alaska started missing patches of fur. Is that true? I want to see the evidence, because if that's true, that's fucking insane. I've heard some foods can dissolve nuclear iodes trapped in our bodies, like pineapple and cilantro. We call that, what do we call that in cilantro? That's so American. Like, we call it, I can't remember what we fucking call it. Some people hate that, right? My ex hated that. Oh, got a donation of $5 from Tom Christopoulos. Are you from Greece? Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. 5309Z says, wildlife outside Chernobyl is prospering. Louis Horton says, Corona is a scam. Trump will be victorious. Voice of Judgment says, prospering but deformed. Michael Chatick says, just did a bit on Google on Pacific Ocean die-off. Want info and you're full of crap as to how hard to get data on Pacific die-offs. There is tons of visual and statistical studies done by non-government. Well, post it in the comments, my friend, and we will get to it. Lefties say we have too many people on the planet and then freak out when a population reducer makes its way around, says I'm a effing unicorn. Jordan B. Peterson reckons once the population hits 9 billion, it's going to start to decline anyways. Uncompetitive says, coronavirus is not a scam, but the lockdowns don't help stop it. Just quarantine the elderly. Kathy says, I found your channel about a week ago, actually recommended by YouTube, which is amazing. So if I'm recommended by YouTube, there can't be as much censorship as people say, because you think my channel will be one of the first ones to get censored. But let's wait and see. Don't want to jinx it now. Voice of Judgment says, I hear in Japan the government will actually take you away if you make too much noise about Fukushima. I don't think that's true. Uncompetitive says, I had COVID-19 in July and nearly died. I got my flu jab yesterday. I won't take the COVID vaccine. It was rushed out. Make of that what you will. Joe Smo says, most Iranians don't give a damn, just want to feed their families like everybody else. I agree with that 100%. Charles Toll says, Trump's speech yesterday was on a green screen set. Look at it, no shadows, and the edging around his clothes and body was showing, and he did not move much as it makes cleaning up edging harder. Is that true? Because someone else mentioned that. And if he did, what does that actually mean? Because he should be doing that live broadcast from the White House. Have some of his team deserted him? Very interesting. Or is that a conspiracy? Desi Mark says, Trump should airstrike Biden's house. And did an emoji of a rocket and an explosion. Fuck me. Fill the rocket with fake ballots. Fucking hell. Hannah, can you animate this sketch? Okay, okay, so Tom Stibbs says, Salty Army is over 500,000 viewers and I've mentioned you in the stream, dude. Thank you, Tom Stibbs. Unless you've got a massive following yourself, I'm not sure how much of a difference that's going to make, but we'll have to wait and see. Lan Tran says, hello from France, love your show, which I usually catch up at 3 a.m. This is only my second live stream since I subscribed. Carry on fighting the communists, Johnny. Likewise, thank you so much for tuning in. Joe Smo says, I live in Long Island, New York. I've yet to see one Biden sign. I've seen a few Trump signs, but that's really dangerous to do. And the liberals are the party of peace and tolerance, and it's dangerous to put up a sign showing any diversity of thought. That is the true evil. Doing something evil like that and then trying to make that look good. Like the evil you're doing is a good thing. That's even worse than just pure evil for the sake of evil. Johnny, do you like Japanese music? Michael Whittle says, no. But the traditional stuff, the old school shit, the feudal Japanese stuff with the koto and shamisen instruments, awesome. And the Japanese drone. Okay, there's a lot of comments about nuclear stuff. I'm going to move on from that. Voice of Judgment says, go blue with your hair. Right. Kathy Mello says, red and white like candy canes for Christmas. Oh, red and white hair? Thanks for the suggestion. Ed Cubic says, dye your hair orange, for orange is the new black, and it looks so damn good on Trump. It is tempting. You are tempting me. That's quite a good idea. Because if I look more like Donald Trump, then I'll just become even more alpha, if that's possible. Kathy Mello says, Trump socks, trade you some Mandela effect British flag socks, but I'm in the US, West Virginia, not to confuse. Joan Wagner says, I live in GA and the video is absolutely reprehensible. Please find it on YouTube and watch it. There's no doubt what is going on. Thank you for being a voice of reason. I love your show. Thank you, and I love you. Over here in Okinawa, which is in Japan, Steph Paul says, thanks for speaking out. It's so nice to hear your opinions from outside the US. Love your show. Thank you so much. See, the love is coming. That's what this live stream is all about. Let's share the love. Michael says, try eating Scottish raised sheep. John King wants a pair of the socks. Jeff Bridges says, Trump socks may work for getting laid in Tokyo, Japan, but here in liberal Massachusetts, it may not get you laid, Johnny. Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. I grew up on punk, says James Evans. Anthony Zemak says, we love you, Johnny. Love you too, mate. Hannah took a nap for 4 hours, messed up her internal clock. I've got to check my phone because my mate is... I've got to see what he's doing. I've got to go like in 5 minutes, so let me just see what my mate's saying. Okay. He's not saying a whole lot, but I've got to go in 5 minutes. Hannah says, I love the punk influence in your music. When it shines through, that's my favorite. The screaming is great. Okay, thank you for the feedback. I'll keep that in mind. Okay. So, wow, okay. Nearly finished. It's getting really political in the comments. Very political. Going to try to pull it back from the politics. Jay American says, bring back the green mohawks, Johnny, and the studded biker gloves. Why the fuck not? Now would be a good time to do it. Because we can't let the social justice warriors have a monopoly on dyed hair. We can't let that happen. All right, so we've got 100 viewers now and 1,000 tomorrow. Love the optimism, Kevin. 100 people watching. Are you all insane? Why do you give a shit what I say? Just some random person in Tokyo. I'll do my best, though. Okay. Wow, it's hard to get through these comments because there's so many. And that is a good problem to have. Feeling blessed. Feeling very blessed right now. Jordan Durham says, here in central Kentucky, there are only Biden signs in rich people's yards. Yeah, where they've got huge barbed wire fences and guns by the door, I imagine, and bodyguards and ring security. John King says, I see Trump to Biden signs 10 to 1. Michael Gloria says, do you think Trump should enact martial law. Fuck, man, you can't do a military coup. I just think he needs to dig deep and get the evidence out and not give in and overturn the election and take it to the Supreme Court. Because without that shit, there's no America. Michael Whittle says, you look like Don Jr. Charles Tull says, then there's not enough love in the world. Sending love your way to everyone watching today. Okay. Frederick Kirsch says, King Trump forever. I'm with you, mate. Tom Christopoulos says, I'm spreading the word to all my friends. Johnny rules. Thank you. Lady Portier. Konnichiwa Bishonen. Konnichiwa, Lady Portier. Halo says, you're fair and impartial. I like that. I try my best. Panna Park says, Johnny, pull back the politics. Johnny, the next fucking second. We need to stop the SJWs. Greets from Greece. John King says, we're here because we agree with you. Kimberly says, I work in NYC for a big company and 3 people have been disciplined for speaking openly to others about the election fraud. That's something that China would do, right? If you say anything against the ruler, the leader, then they're going to basically censor you and penalize you. Just awful. Michael Chattock says, love all the music genre, but today's hottest world market is US county and western and a cappella groups. Voice of Judgment says, SJWs are why tigers eat their young. Anthony Zemek says, the very fact I was banned proves Satan exists. Ed Kubik says, Barr was part of Dominion, an energy company, not the voting company. Mark Simpson has donated £10 in English currency. 10 fucking quid, mate. That could buy you McDonald's after a night out. Thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate it. So he says, give my regards to creepy guy at the bar. I will. And on that note, I'm going to have to get the fuck out of here. I'm just going to refresh my feed to make sure I've managed to get through most of the comments and haven't left anybody out. One day it's going to be impossible to read all the comments, but then that might be a challenge. I'll just have to read it as fast as possible, and that'll be good practice for future Johnny Massacre shows. So the final comments for today are too political. So thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be late now for my mate, so I've got to go. I've been Johnny Massacre, and I tell you what, mate, you better be back for the next live stream. Otherwise, I'll be coming round your house. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, because that is what all those other cunts tell you to do. Laters.